Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are. My name is Mary Conley Eggert, and I'm with Global Waterworks, and we are delighted to have you joining us for the second in a series of a four-part webinar series sponsored by Accelerate H2O on how water tech goes to market. I am thrilled to share with you that we have an online resource on YouTube that you can access these different presentations or share them with your peers who are working to break through the clutter and accelerate adoption of smart and efficient water technologies to address today's global needs. Online from last time, we were able to share the message planner as well as an approach to getting the voice of the customer surfaced in your findings, and a great example of corporate listings of exceptional technologies and their case studies. And I'm thrilled to have with us today a few of those people who participated last time and who will provide a little additional detail on the ways that technologies are surfacing and getting adopted by cities who have real needs. My name, as I mentioned, is Mary Conley Eggert, and I started Global Waterworks because of the need that we heard with the 2030 report. Many of you may know that in 2030, the World Bank and McKinsey have predicted that we will have a 40% gap between the supply and demand of water. And so our background is as technologists, and our goal was to connect those people who had solutions with those who had needs and make the resources available to others and demonstrate through solutions and through the experts that we can all together make an impact. Well, we're thrilled to have people who are already making an impact here with us. Richard Sealing, the sponsor of this program from Accelerate H2O, actually founded the Texas Accelerator, and he has a demonstration hub. He has been active with the EPA, with the Republican National Committee in Texas, and he just knows how to connect those people who have solutions with the cities that he's serving throughout Texas. An exceptional resource. He's also demonstrated through a Houston facility what can happen with smart technology, and you can submit your technologies for his consideration, and he'll tell you more about that shortly. Elle Hempen, I encountered about a year and a half ago at the Smart Water Networks Forum launch. Thrilled that she is here because she's going to outline what's going on with cities looking for solutions. And finally, Chuck Pfluger, my colleague with Global Waterworks, has 30 years of driving technology adoption within the energy sector, has immense knowledge of Texas and the oil and gas marketplace, and can guide individual technology companies on how to position their specific solution to resonate with buyers in the marketplace. He's going to facilitate our discussion, but first I'm going to turn it over to Richard to share a little bit more about the Accelerate H2O initiative in Texas. I'm seeing there may be a sound problem with Richard, so I will explain, and I'm sure we'll get the fix as we move on. But basically, Accelerate H2O is a membership organization. Details are on the website under accelerate-h2o.org. But he set that up to support the innovation, demonstration, and investment in smart technologies, and has a tremendous knowledge base, puts on a variety of roundtables in Texas, and also is a sponsor of these marketing sessions. And the reason he's doing that is because all of you know about Harvey and the need for solutions, whether it's flooding or drought on the west side of Texas right now. Water solutions are needed across the span of the water system, and there's no better place to demonstrate than in Texas because they go big. I think that's what they say in Texas. You get things done in a really demonstrable way that allows for him also to capture that for case studies. And I'm going to turn it over to Elle to share a little bit more about the role of case studies in marketing smart technology.
Great. Hi. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Mary and Chuck and Richard for including me in this. Really quickly, just wanted to introduce myself and the Atlas, and you'll hear plenty of me through the rest of the session. But my background is I actually started at the EPA, so spent a lot of time looking at water technology deployment, both here and so it's exciting to be working in this space and seeing a lot of the development that's happening and innovation that's happening. The Atlas Marketplace is an online community built to help city, county, and utility officials come together to share, learn, and connect about real solutions that are working to make their communities safer, smarter, and more sustainable. Because we've got this engaged audience of local government decision makers, we're really helping to solve the discovery problem in this market for companies. And so we'll work with companies directly to bring them into the Atlas Marketplace to help educate potential customers about the work that they've already done and start to build those productive, trusted relationships that are really essential to move forward in this market. We'll talk about that quite a bit. And then we also help to do opportunity spotting before any contract is written based on what we're hearing from cities about who's making decisions, who's buying what, and when. So think of the Atlas like a more strategic year-long conference that you can be engaged at online. I'll pause there. I'm going to talk quite a bit more about sort of the value of case studies and branding more broadly, but really looking forward to diving in and hopefully answering a bunch of questions as well. So thanks again.
Yeah, great to have you with us, Al. And I'm thrilled to turn it over, as I said, to Chuck Pfluger, who will lead our discussion today.
So, what is a brand? Simply put, your brand is what your prospect thinks of when they hear your brand name. It represents everything they think they know about your offering, both factual, it comes in a silver box, and emotional. It's all about romance. Your brand name exists, people can see it, it's real, and it also exists in someone's mind in terms of how they feel about it, so it's emotional too. Textbooks say that a brand is a name, symbol, or design which identifies your company's solutions and brings to mind how they are distinctly different from your competitors. A brand is an idea that creates awareness and favorable opinions. Strong brands are familiar to their audiences and customers, are associated with favorable characteristics, and consistently provide value that builds trust. You can see from this slide that a brand does a lot of work. Just read the list. One of its biggest jobs is to help customers and prospects reduce decision risk. There's an old school adage that no one was ever fired as a result of buying technology from IBM. As you build trust in your brand, it helps reduce decision risk for your buyer, and that's important. One way to see how a brand grows stronger is when its customers start referring to it by something different than its brand name. Think FedEx or Target. This only happens when customers feel a strong enough relationship with a brand to give it a nickname, which ideally, and in this case, reinforces the brand attributes that Federal Express and Target promote: speed and efficiency and affordable chic. But customers, sometimes their perceptions can be a headache. Whole Foods continues to struggle to shed the moniker whole paycheck, which refers to perceptions of what it costs to shop there. Maybe Amazon will help change that. Elle, I bet you've got a tip for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the strongest things that we've seen really work is that noting that your brand is more than a logo, it's really your story, is that it's your job as a company to really set that narrative and tell a story that helps customers build trust in you and see themselves in your work, which I think is both really key. One of the things that is especially true for technologies that are new to the market is it's your job to sell yourself as much as it is to sell your innovative solution, and that's all a part of brand. So one of the things we talk a lot about in terms of brand is really content marketing, and that's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. It's been developed and grown really as a commonplace tool that companies can use to tell their story and communicate clearly. But one of the things that's really important when you think about content marketing as it relates to brand is that it shouldn't be used as a way to just promote yourself, but instead content marketing is really intended to stimulate interest in your products and your services. So good content marketing that really establishes your brand and sets the narrative should focus on really three things. And this is what we talk about a lot with the companies we're working with. One is you should always map the content to the pain point. So focus on the problem that you're working to solve. This will help potential customers understand and see themselves in your work by looking at their own problem statement and seeing that problem statement reflected in the work that you're talking about. Second is to map to the content to outcomes. So focus as much as you possibly can on the that will help build that trust that's necessary and set the narrative about the type of value that you can provide to customers. And the last piece that's really important when you're thinking about content to establish your brand is thinking about the how. And this is something that a lot of people don't actually talk about. They talk a lot about the outcomes. They talk a lot about value proposition, but they don't talk a lot about really the buying cycle and how they fit into it as a company. And that's something that's really important to think about and to make sure that you're expressing as a part of your brand story. Are you somebody that comes in really early and partners and collaborates? Are you somebody that works through a different channel? Be really clear about that as you're establishing your story, because it'll help people really understand how they can best engage with you. One thing that's also very important and also a trap that a lot of people fall into is that good content and good brand does not include any buzzwords. It's really easy to talk about efficiency and but those words don't really mean anything. Being really specific and directive in terms of the language that you use will go a long way in creating a brand that tells your story and helps create that sort of value and trust that you need a brand to create for you. One company that we're working with that does a great job of it, I don't know if anybody from 120 Water Audit is on the line, but they do a really great job of telling their story and talking about it in terms of the problem they're solving, the outcomes that they're creating, and how they actually fit into the system. And they definitely are very good about not using a ton of buzzwords. So look to them as a great example. Specifically, one thing that I'll point you to, and I'm happy to share in any additional information, but one thing that they did on the Atlas as a case study was talk about their work in Pittsburgh. And so they were very clear about the fact that the problem they were solving was compliance issues that are related to lead and water, but the community had a really limited budget. Very distinct, specific problem statement that I think is really important in setting the narrative and helping somebody understand the problem you're solving. Focused on outcomes, quantifiable outcomes wherever possible. And finally, they talked a little bit about the incentive structure that was created to motivate adoption and supplement the investment that the community was making. So 120 Water Audit, a great example of a company that is new to the market, but doing a good job of really establishing their brand, both as a trusted resource, but also by doing a great job of doing content marketing to help support and extend that brand. I'll hand it back to Chuck to talk about some more brand important aspects.
So following up on Elle, she talked about trusted brands. Well, trusted brands are perceived as competent and effective because they do what they promise. They don't disappoint. Trusted brands deliver consistently and contribute value even when it's not in the money-making interest of the brand owners. When brands are consistent and dependable, trust builds and customers become advocates. That means that your customers develop a familiarity with your brand, and by so doing, help promote your brand through their interactions. They become brand ambassadors for you because they know that you deliver the value that matters most to them. Elle, time for another tip.
Great, thanks. This is maybe one of the biggest ones, and this is that solving a problem is always going to be better than selling. So just to give you guys a sense of what we are hearing from our now over 100 city officials on the Atlas. One city manager called and told us that he receives 40 unsolicited sales calls or emails a week. I was recently at a conference sitting down with a bunch of city officials that ranged across different sectors, and they went around reading quotes from some of the most outrageous sales emails they got in the last 3 days. So city, county, utility officials are bombarded with sales pitches that all represent that they're the biggest, best solution to all of that city's problems. And clearly that's not true in a lot of cases. And it also means that there's a lot of fatigue on local government side about seeing through, seeing the truth and sort of trying to understand what's snake oil and what's not. It's clear that in this space, in the business to government space, that some of the traditional B2B or business to business sales tactics like cold emails or cold calls just don't really work. And that's, again, to Chuck's point, that trust is so very important in this market. And the best way that we've found companies to build trust is to really be a helpful partner repeatedly. And so some examples of how that's actually possible, because it's hard to build those trusted relationships. One is to just be really thoughtful and creative, be creative about finding opportunities to productively engage with your customers instead of sell directly. That'll help define your brand as a partner rather than a vendor, which goes a really long way in establishing that trust. Some things to help you do that. If you do get a meeting with a local government official, make sure to do your homework. We hear from so many city officials that by the time they're sitting down with a company, they're actually pretty excited about what the company's doing. And then the company walks in and hasn't read their strategy, doesn't know where they are in the process, doesn't know what they've already deployed. And a lot of this information is publicly available. So walking in, having a clear understanding of what the city's challenges are and where they are in the process will go a long way in establishing that trusted partner relationship. Another thing, and I said this before, always try to offer a pathway to implementation. Most city officials and county and utility officials are pretty oversubscribed in terms of capacity. And so offering a solution to a problem instead of just stating that there's a problem to be had in terms of implementation, again, goes a long way. I've had a number of conversations with city officials that will really choose to move forward with a partner if the partner walks. We have to do implementation, but we've already thought through the strategy to getting over those hurdles, and here's how we can help. The other thing I'll say is that honesty is important. Recognizing the chandles that you'll face goes a long way in establishing that you're a trusted partner that they can work with and get through problems with, instead of just handing off problems to. One great example, and one that I can talk to really specifically because we just had it, is some work that we've done with Repipe 4710, which is a new company. They've got a really cool trenchless pipe solution that has been deployed in a couple of different forms across the globe, mostly in Europe, but they haven't deployed here in the United States. And so what they're trying to do is really build that trusted brand and build that relationship in order to get their first pilot done. We recently involved them in an event called the Procuring Resilience. It doesn't come around all the time to be able to engage in these type of workshops, but we framed this as an opportunity to bring cities and companies together around solving the challenge of procurement as it relates to water innovation and solving legacy water challenges, whether that's lead in pipes or stormwater management writ large. By focusing that customer and company relationship around solving a problem that they're both facing some of the inefficiencies that relate to procurement as cities are trying to do something innovative. It allowed them to talk about some of the challenges that they have and brainstorm about ways that they both could get better in order to solve that problem. And so framing it not as a sales conversation, but as a productive problem-solving conversation actually led to Repipe having really productive follow-on sales conversations with 3 of the cities that were involved in this Procuring Resilience workshop. So definitely focus on problem solving. I think it'll go a long way in creating that trusted brand. Obviously, workshops like the one I just described don't come around every day, but there's lots of avenues to be able to build that relationship and focus on problem solving. If you're speaking at a conference, don't just talk about your product, talk about a case study and bring along one of your customers to talk through sort of how you work through all of the issues to get to the end outcome. Pilots, obviously something that the water sector is very good at doing, but another great option for thinking about how to problem solve together. And then another 2 things that I'll just recommend really quickly before sending it back over to Chuck. A lot of cities are now running RFIs or competitions. These are great opportunities to establish yourself as a problem solver, as a partner. They do take a little bit of time, and we recognize that there are some issues around that. But if you have the chance, definitely respond to some of those because it helps to build that trust and that relationship. And then obviously partnering with trusted organizations like Accelerate H2O or Global Waterworks are a great way to establish yourself as a good partner. So I'll flip it back over to Chuck to continue the conversation on brand and building trust.
Thanks, Al. I can't stress this often enough, and this really goes back to Al's comment about snake oil. Customers and end users must not think that all brands in the category are the same. Customers must be convinced that your brand is different and has meaningful differences from competitors. And really, it's your job to figure out how to communicate that to your prospects. We'll have an upcoming webinar about marketing communications and brand positioning that will kind of give you some tips as to how to do that. Your prospects will not move forward in building a trusted relationship with a brand until a brand proves that it is able to live up to its part of the bargain. Brands succeed because they earn and deserve, not because you desire to sell a product or a service. Perception equals value. Next slide. Brand equity is the added value endowed on products and services. It may be reflected in the way consumers think, feel, and act with respect to the brand, as well as in the prices, market share, and profitability that the brand commands. If brand equity were an equation, it might look like this. Brand equity equals familiarity times trust plus customer value plus points of differentiation plus customer experience. So the strength of your brand depends upon your genuine uniqueness plus the great value you provide plus the good customer experiences that you deliver. A common brand equity benefit is financial. It allows you to command that premium price. Brand equity also helps companies expand product lines as customers realize that the new product will likely perform as well or better than a competitor's product. The underlying belief, therefore, and inherent with strong brand equity, is that the company will go to great pains to make sure their reputation is not put at risk by offering a less than perfect brand or product extension. Elle, I think it's time for the last two tips.
Awesome, thanks. It's very straightforward. Again, an old adage with a new twist. A picture is worth more than 1,000 words, emails, and cold calls. One of the first questions that we get asked by any local government official that we're working with is, especially when they're presented with a new solution, is who else has done this? Can you show me specifically who has used this solution and who has looked like me? So has the same budget constraints, has the same environmental issues, has the same specific challenge. I was just recently talking to a city official in Orlando, Florida, with a suggestion that they can solve a problem for him. He asked them to come back and share examples about where they've done similar work with other cities, and he has yet to get a really compelling response. And he said he often hears crickets, so he doesn't actually hear from the company again. I think it's really important in this space that have validated case studies and how important they are in being able to tell your story and be able to bridge that gap with city officials, with county officials, with utility officials to prove that you're a trusted partner and extend your brand. Pointing to real installations opens up doors. Proving that you're not snake oil, that you have a solution that's providing value in system at scale is obviously a huge selling point, and anybody who's on this call already knows that. Case studies are the best advertising, and the best advertising you can do, or the best brand building, is from happy customers. Again, it's not rocket science. I'll go back to, though, the initial points I made about content marketing. Case studies are great when they don't have buzzwords and they're not marketing copy. They're great when they focus on problems that are being solved, outcomes that are being delivered to the customer, and the process by which those outcomes are being delivered. When you're thinking about case studies, it's also important to think about the diversity of the problems that you're solving. So you want a case study for every specific problem that you're solving in order for the potential customer to be able to see themselves in the work that you've already done. Also think about the diversity of users. If you're working with lots of different size cities, that's really important to showcase, because El Paso may not be able to look at New York City and believe that they have the same capacity or the same problem set. But El Paso sure can look at Austin or Houston or Dallas and feel like that's a relative and reasonable counterpoint to the problems that they're looking to solve. So think about that when you're thinking about developing case studies. Obviously, case studies are hard work. So again, focus on those three key aspects: problem statement, outcomes, and how the work got done. Validate however you can with quotes or testimonials. Obviously, happy customers go a long way, but there's also other ways to validate it. We obviously built the Atlas to solve that problem in many respects by adding content into our system. It's not only branded, but it's also validated by the cities that were involved in that project. I'll also encourage you not just to share case studies on your own website. automatically your website is not the most trusted resource from the perspective of a city official or a county official or a local government official. They really want to see that peer validation and know that somebody else that looks like them has dealt with it. They could pick up the phone and ask a question to their peer. So use every avenue that you can distribute, and I encourage you to think outside of the water sector as well. These days, everybody at a local government wants to be innovative. They want to look good. They want to make their city look good. And so there's this plethora of cross-cutting officers that have C's in front of their names. So Chief Innovation Officers, Chief Technology Officers, Chief Sustainability Officers, Chief Resilience Officers. They're all looking for unique solutions that can drive value into their system, whether that's creating efficiencies, saving money, creating more value for their residents. So I encourage you to think creatively about getting case studies out to as broad of a range as possible. One example, Opti, I don't know if they're on the line as well, but we worked with them to get some of their case studies, in particular their case study of Philadelphia, into ELGL's What Are You Waiting For contest. And that was really, ELGL is a broad local government official social network, and their focus is really on encouraging peer-to-peer sharing between city officials and supporting local government employees. Not a direct water specific entity, but a really great opportunity to talk for Opti to share what they were doing with the city to solve a real problem and get a lot of visibility across a variety of different decision makers at the city level, whether it was city managers or city engineers or chief sustainability officers. The value of that obviously increases visibility and educating community about the work that you've done. This case study, in particular through the What Are You Waiting For contest, got Opti an additional 200 views in the last couple of months, making sure that content is being delivered to actual decision makers. And in addition, we've been able to leverage that case study for new introductions to a handful of new city officials that they hadn't already connected with. So a great opportunity to really think more broadly about what your market is in terms of educating and building that brand, so that when you're actually going to speak to the decision maker for your particular product, they already know about you and trust you and feel good about the work that you've done. So Chuck, I'll hand it back over to you to sort of wrap it up so we can get to questions.
Real quick, Al, it's
Yeah.
Richard. Let me reemphasize what you just said. So we had a small group this morning here in Houston, and we had the Chief Innovation Officer for the City of Houston. We had the head of the big technology initiative. They suddenly it connected on the issues of water technology beyond the idea that it was going to only focus on some form of wastewater or drinking water or storm and flood. It connected with them on this issue, as you just said, about resiliency, sustainability, energy, water, data, whatever it is. And we also happen to have some of the leadership related to kind of the city's next steps, in its global reach. So I want to reemphasize that sometimes we only focus on what we know, which could be, the procurement decision maker or the head of a division. I would encourage, if you think your product and your solution can actually position itself, whether it's energy, water, nexus, whatever you want to refer, I think sometimes it's just as good to bring in some folks that may be outside the direct fence line of a water utility, but are interested in supporting that utility, just as you said, from a resiliency or sustainability or innovation. I have now seen, the light bulb go off as recently as an hour and a half ago. And I think we often just believe that the only person that we can influence is that procurement decision maker. Sometimes there's influencers of the influencers, if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I just chime in. Also, Richard, I think what you've always said is that find out what the needs are before you're marketing. And Elle was talking about that. Don't sell me a solution, solve a problem. And I think what you're talking about is listening to the people at the utilities, and you facilitate those types of interactions. So we're delighted.
But not just at the, but not just at the utility. okay? Not just at the utility. I think what Elle is raising is that there's some folks within these municipalities that are tangentially connected to, whether it's the chief innovation officer, the resiliency officer, the sustainability officer, that actually is a collaborator directly or indirectly with your water system. And if you think that your product and your solution is addressing a problem, not just at an operational level, but at something larger context, I want to reinforce that I just saw, again, the light bulb go off to bring those other influencers into your conversation within a city.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. And finding a champion is so very important. And those can be some of your best champions. So if you can align with broader mission orientation or strategies, it's a great way to help, as Richard said, influence the influencer.
Yes, excellent. Well, I think we have time for questions coming up. I just want to recap as you're hearing from the speakers on this end. We know that there are experts on our customer listener end as well. So we invite you to chime in. We also want to just recap, the importance of solving a problem. And what we've learned here is, material that you could cover in a semester on brand building. So there's a lot more. We just wanted to give you the basics and things you could apply today. So understanding what problem you solve, aligning the narrative, as Elle said, making sure you support what the need is in the marketplace with the benefits that you deliver, and affiliate with organizations like Accelerate H2O, or position your case study on the Atlas, or with many of the water organizations we'll talk about in a coming session. And finally, pictures and, authentic behavior, examples, statistics, testimonials. They all help reinforce your narrative with evidence that makes you more credible, believable, and someone that people want to follow. So as we wait for questions, you can put them in the chat box. But I also just want to reiterate that these series are posted on YouTube. You can find them at bit.ly/Texas go-to-market GTM. There's a little link up here on the right-hand side, so you can access the first overview, which was packed with useful tools and applicable examples you can apply, from a message planner to a survey research effort. What we'd love is to hear what's on the minds of all of you who are listening, because you're clearly wanting to go to market and capture and support Richard in serving the Texas utilities, municipalities, and cities. So do let us know, and we'll share back the questions. Joy, maybe, is there anyone we have out there right now?
Yeah, there are a few questions. Elle, this one was specifically for you. The third part of content marketing that you said, it was map content to the pain point, the outcomes, and what was the third thing? Your audio dropped just a bit there.
Oh, sorry about, yeah. The third thing is mapping to process, the how. So looking at the buying cycle of your particular customer. And where do you slot into that? Are you, is it best, do you need to be engaged with the customer early on in pre-development of the project in order to really fit in nicely? Or can you come in at the end of the process and really slot in nicely there? And so being really clear about where you fit in the buying process for a local government is really important, because it helps them understand, when they need to be learning about you, when they need to be engaging you in a conversation.
And it's also very helpful that you maintain communications with that prospect throughout the entire buying process. Absolutely. Because you may not have something that's really, really relevant for you at a particular point, but they still need to know that you're there, that you've got a solution. So you need to find a way to tailor relevant information to that prospect throughout the buying cycle, and then really engage when it's appropriate for you within the buying cycle.
But this is Richard, let me emphasize, and I hate to be harsh about this, if you're waiting until the RFP gets issued, you're too late. I mean, because you're in a process, and sometimes where, quote unquote, it's a cooling off period. You can't talk with somebody, you can't engage, or they feel uncomfortable. So that, I think, of what both of y'all are raising is you've got to get in early. You got to stay in. You also need to be looking and finding out, when they are anticipating issuing an RFP. There are a lot of tools available. And what I'm finding is a lot more municipalities are doing assessments of their infrastructure and getting a better understanding. Are they 1 year away, 3 years away, 6 months away from the shelf life of a piece of equipment? And they now are getting a better handle on that life cycle, which is changing their whole CIP budget process. So I would encourage that if you wait for the RFP to be issued, you've missed what I believe is all the work that you should have been doing to brand and position yourself well before that point.
Yeah, excellent point, I think. And Elle, you actually provide some of those RFP references or examples, and some of the case studies I know include an RFP example, I believe. Could you comment on that as a resource?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's an excellent point. Obviously, the sooner that you can engage, the better. That's why education is so key and a big part of what we do with the Atlas. The other thing that we do is, we do RFP distribution based on what we're hearing from our cities, but maybe more importantly, we help opportunity spot in advance because we have really engaged relationships with our local government officials. The other thing that I'll say that, and I think to Mary, your point specifically, whenever we're doing project content, we're also asking folks to upload examples of the procurement document that was used to get that project done, which is a great way and many of our city officials are using that as ways to basically refine how they write their own RFPs. So if they see a project that they really love, that they think is a great fit for the solution they're trying, or the problem they're trying to solve and is a great solution for them, they can actually take that RFP language that was written by their peer and replicate it in their own RFP. So that one, they're writing it broadly enough that they're not narrowing the scope so much that they can't work with you, but also to make sure that it's available for you and that it's clear that you are a potential solution for them. And so that's one of the ways that we're helping, not just to solve some of the capacity issues on the city side, but also making sure that companies have a good sense of the opportunities that are right for them.
Yeah, that is super. And it's such a great way to streamline this whole effort to not require the duplicate work with another engineering firm in another state if they can grab that content that already exists. I know we have some really amazing people participating in the audience from the UK, from around the globe. If anyone did want to share an example or a strategy that they've seen work with building brands in the water sector, just chime in the chat box and we'll call on you. Or just let us know if you can't be heard for some reason with the audio. But any other questions, Joy?
Yes. So we have another one that says, one problem, especially with modern communications technology-based solutions, is that buyers don't know how to invite solutions. How can we influence buyer specifications and budgeting if the solution hasn't been seen before?
Well, I think this is Richard. I think I may be able to at least throw an idea or two in there. Because this is really almost a circular issue, and that is if somebody is proposing a solution, but that solution has not been seen or observed other than what is on an exhibit floor or some other kind of inactive scenario, what we've heard from procurement decision makers and others is they won't make that next step. And so the idea of a pilot or demonstration is becoming more and more critical. It's part of the reason why we launched these demonstration hubs in Texas. It's the reason why we're partnering with other hubs around the United States. One, to share what we're doing in Texas, but also to find out what may have been demonstrated someplace else. Because, again, if it's not at scale, and if it's not proven to show how it integrates into a facility or operations, there is a real hesitancy. The second part of what we're trying to do, here with the demonstrations, is include the engineering community, because they have a significant influence on what gets designed into these projects. And when we say engineers, we're not just including the consulting engineers on the outside. We're talking about the engineers that are inside these systems, who also have an influence. So I think my encouragement, whether it's the ones that we're doing in Texas or other places, I mean, I'm biased for obviously what we're doing here, but I think any opportunity to use some of your business development dollars and put resources into conducting a demonstration or pilot and in leveraging that to its fullest, I believe it'll produce more results.
But I'm going to go on with just the Accelerate H2O membership opportunity that we have, which is significant. And Richard facilitates that and has a variety of different roadmaps he's put together to guide people in the sector, and also 7 different roundtables focused on oil and gas, food and beverage, and these different areas, and then the demonstration hub and showcase. And what we'd love to do is have you back and have you connect with us individually. We will be posting these webinars as we mentioned, but also invite you to contact any of us individually, and hope that you can return for these sessions. We will keep you apprised via email. We would like to stay connected with all of you and showcase those of you who do have other examples to share in our future sessions. So we'll give you an update on when those are happening, and wish you all a great day. Apologize for the problems with the audio here at the end, but trust that you've got a tremendous amount from the examples shared, and that you'll take advantage of what's out there with the Atlas and with Accelerate H2O, and continue to keep us apprised at Global Waterworks, because we love to share successes like all of you are creating. Signing off for Global Waterworks here, Mary Eggert. Bye-bye.